Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. If this is your first time stumbling on the show, my name is Ryan. I'm a full-time reseller, part-time YouTuber, and podcaster working out of my home here in the greater Cincinnati area, and this channel is all about the flip life. This is our mostly weekly. I do have one in a couple of weeks that I'm going to miss, actually. I got an offer yesterday to go clean out a portion of a warehouse full of books. They wanted me to come up today, and I had already planned this. And then they're going to be gone next week. So on, I think it's the 6th, maybe, whatever that Wednesday is, the first Wednesday of May, we will not be here because I will be picking up, I don't know how many books from a warehouse, but nonetheless, we're here most Wednesdays to talk about all things reselling. I had a request to take a look at kind of how I used List Perfectly last week. So I've got some listings from this morning saved up to show you how I cross post. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about List Perfectly, and I'll show you the different pricing plans. And if it's something that you think is right for you, shameless plug, there is an affiliate link in the comments and the show notes down below. You can go click that. The channel gets a little bit of a kickback, and you get 30% off your first month to try it out. So before we get into that, let's say our good mornings. Miss Lachey resells. Hello to Ryan and the chat. Good morning. Always good to see you. Welcome in, everyone. Be sure to hit the thumbs up so Ryan becomes YouTube famous. Thank you. Because as we all know, I'm terrible at asking people to do that. So thanks. I appreciate it. Black Cat Flips. Good morning, everyone. Chuck Witt. Good morning. Where are you at today, Chuck? You seem to, when I see you on Facebook, you seem to be quite the traveler. Lord Jake Ryan, always good to see you. Mel, good morning once again. Mel was at my Whatnot show yesterday as well. Bethany Walker, good morning. That's a name I don't know that I've seen before. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you stopping by. Media Picker, Brandon, good morning. Mike Metco Meetups, good morning, my friend. And Sissy Moore, good morning to you as well. You use Nifty? I've not heard of Nifty. Let us know a little bit about that in the chat, if you would. And Midget Gordon Ramsey says, good morning to all. One more popping in here, my friend Recommerce Dave from the land down under. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. So let's take a look at List Perfectly here. Get out of here real quick and show you how I use it. So what I do most days is I'll do my whatever 10, 15 listings, and then I will go to the listings page on the eBay website. List Perfectly is a browser extension that works with either Chrome or Microsoft, whatever their newest one is, Edge, I think it is. I use it in Chrome. I like Chrome. We'll see how that goes if they are actually forced to divest it. That is the latest word, is that the government is going to make Google sell off Chrome. So that's an interesting one. But in any event, I'll go into my listing page here. And as I talk about, I do promoted listings. So all of my listings get promoted. So I will go over here to all filters. And the listings that I just did are not yet promoted. So I will click on that and then see my results. And then you can see here, I've got 18 listings that are eligible for promotion. These are things, there's 3 at the bottom that are older listings that for one reason or another, I'm not promoting. I did 15 listings this morning. Those are the ones we're going to cross list here. So List Perfectly, if you're logged in, will show here. You can either cross list them individually. I pay for the Pro plan, which is kind of the second tier, because I want to be able to do these in bulk, not one at a time. And I can just hit start selecting. And I send everything that qualifies to go on Etsy that's $12.99 and higher will get cross-listed over to Etsy, and everything gets cross-listed to Mercari. So this morning, we're just going to do the Mercari ones first. And you just click on that individual listing that you want to, and you see that it turns green. And I'm just going to select all of these because I want to do all of them in bulk. And that is my 15 from this morning. You go back up here and hit stop, and then it brings up the screen that allows you to select where you want to send these listings. I always start in eBay because that is the one that has the most details required. So that's usually where I'll start, and then I'll send them out from there. You can see all the different ones here. You can send them directly to List Perfectly if you want to use them to manage your inventory. I'm not paying for that level of subscription, so I don't use it that way. In this case, I just want to go to Mercari. You'll click that and hit copy, and then you'll see across the screen, it's going to open a new tab to create a new listing for each of these 15 over in Mercari. And that's what we will work on. While those are loading, let me get back here into the chat if I can find where I left off. Nifty, there's that. Okay. And there's Dave. All right, here we go. Travel to my storage unit. I did that this morning as well. Traveled over to the warehouse. My first thing in the morning. Usually by 7 o'clock, I'm over there taking a box of stuff that I've just listed over there and then grabbing the stuff I need. Mel says she uses Nifty too. Was formerly Autoposher. Okay, that I've heard of. So that makes sense. Big Dre, good morning. Good to see you as always. Den Decor Depot, thank you for coming out. Let's get back into this. So now you can see it's continuing to open these various Mercari tabs, and it transferred my pictures over, my title, my description. It makes an effort to get the category right. It's not real good. This is probably more Mercari actually than List Perfectly. It does have it listed correctly as a book. This is an old textbook, an old reader, so I'm going to list it as a textbook. This is in fair condition. You can see in my description here, I've got condition is acceptable with cover wear, staining, like tanning, and so on. There's no brand on this. There is, but it's not going to be one of Mercari's selections. I do ship on my own, so I'm going to add the shipping price into this. I know this is going to go media mail at the £2 rate, so it's going to be between $5 and $6. I'm going to call it $6, so we'll call this $13 even, and then just list, and it will go ahead and create a new listing. And we'll just continue to do that, work our way across. You can see it's populated all of these. This is a reference book from the 1930s, published by the National Bureau of Casualty and Surety Underwriters about how to drive a car safely. Again, we're going to select no brand. I think I said this was good. Yes. Good condition. This one was under £1, so $5. We'll call it 13. And you can see how this process goes pretty quickly as opposed to trying to do them all individually, transferring over all the photos and all that kind of stuff. We're going to call this one nonfiction. Other, I think this was good. Yes. $5 book, less than £1 to ship. This will be $10. I think there's a lot of cheap books today. Reverence for Wood. This is call it a reference book, educational and instructional. This is in fair condition. The spine is starting to split on this one. Another £1 book, so $10. Miracle on 34th Street. This I thought would be worth more money. It's from 1947. It's the book that prompted the movie to be made, and it's really not all that valuable. I was surprised. It's $8, and again, we're going to call it 13. So you can see, at least with Mercari, List Perfectly does most of the heavy lifting for me. Some of the things, again, like the transfer of the type of book, it's not perfect, but we'll leave that. I'm happy with that. This one was in good shape. This is a £2 book, so 6 and 6, we'll call it 12. And you can run through these, obviously, pretty quickly. If you remember the weights and what kind of shape they were in. I think this was £2 and some change, so we'll call it 7. We'll call that 13. And I don't wait to see that they listed. I'll go back and look at all these tabs as I close them, but this is a religion and spirituality book in fair condition. This is some sort of reference book. We'll call it educational and instructional, again, in fair condition from the 1940s. It's actually in pretty good shape. It was a heavy one. And again, you can just move through these with quite a bit of quickness rather than trying to do this all manually. You can see here, Mercari makes some suggestions on pricing from time to time. Their suggested price on this is $4 to $6. $4 wouldn't even ship this. So I generally ignore Mercari's recommendations. Mercari does not have a very good option for condition, which is kind of weird. They have good, and then it goes straight to like new. I would like for them to have one in the middle there. Mercari, if you're listening, it's probably that ship has probably sailed, but and you can see 15 of these is going to be done pretty quickly here. And then we'll go back and hit the chat again, and then I'll do the handful that are going to go over to Etsy, so you can see that process as well. Call that 30. Neat old textbook. This was also a heavy one. I think it was like $7, so we'll call it 18. And that's that. That's 15 listings cross-posted with me talking and kind of showing you the process all at the same time. It took, what, 5-6 minutes? It would probably take less than that if I wasn't trying to show the process. And then I'll just close out these tabs, checking them to make sure that they all went through. And here you go. Here's one that did not go through. So we'll hit list again. And another one. Again, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Occasionally, you'll get this message, your item could not be listed due to an error. Please return to the home screen and try listing the item again. I skip that part and just hit list, and it usually goes straight through. So if you see that, you can just ignore it. And a lot of them did not go through. Some of that is if I hit the list button before the price has updated with the selling fee, sometimes it will lock up. And that's that. So that is all of those sent over. Let me get back here into the chat, see if I can figure out where I was, because it is really tiny on there. There's the Den Decor Depot saying good morning. Bethany Walker says, nice smell, new to the platform, under a month, but I like it. I know a lot of people like Auto Posher now, nifty. I guess Big Dre says, yesterday a buyer was rude to me and threatened me because I wouldn't give more than $100 off an item, so I blocked them and reported them to eBay. Yeah, I don't know what it is with buyers. They have these expectations that you should just do whatever they want. I'm pretty flexible, as long as you're nice and polite to me, and I'll explain to you why I can or can't do something. I had somebody reach out over the weekend from international order, interested in an old model railroading book, and they only wanted information from one page of the book, and they didn't want to pay what obviously is going to be very expensive shipping to get the item shipped overseas. So they just asked if I would send them a photo of that page. That is just something I'm not inclined to do. I'm not a library. I'm all about customer service, but I'm not going to make any money on that deal. And that's why I'm here. This is how I make my living. So I politely declined. Again, same thing. I got kind of a nasty gram back about why wouldn't I just do that? I'm like, because I'm here as a business and I'm here to sell things. Congratulations, you're blocked. Sue Aaronhold, welcome. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully you get something from this today. If you do and you're not currently a subscriber, please consider doing that. I'd love to have you on board. Bethany says to Sue, I'm new too. Brian is great. Thank you so much. Good source of reseller news and a good teacher. I try. I appreciate that very much. Mel has had Autopusher/Nifty for about a year. Black Cat Flips welcomes the new folks. Thank you very much. Sales are weird with us, says Den Decor Tipo. Had 3 good days leading into Easter weekend. Lots of offers sent on eBay, but not what it should be during peak refund season. My up until yesterday, the last week has been phenomenal. If you caught the Monday episode or the recap I did on Instagram on Saturday at Galaxy CDs Rocks, I had a terrific week last week. The weekend, Easter Sunday, was fantastic. Monday was really good. I think I had 26 orders on Monday, which is a huge Monday for me. And then this morning, I had 6 to ship. So you just never know what's going on. I am up for April, I think like 4%. So it's essentially flat to last year for me. And that is with adding in Whatnot, which hasn't done a ton of business for me this month. But it's not been great. It's not certainly on a growth trajectory for me either. Prepuccio, if I said that right, Sanchez list perfectly, can be quite pricey. We're going to get into that in just a moment here. I'll show you that. And then I'll go back and I'll do those Etsy listings. Bailey Banks, I have not made even one sale on Mercari all month. How are your sales? Is anybody else having this same problem? I have done, I think, 5 on Mercari with 9,600 plus listings over there. Now, granted, I don't think Mercari is a big site for books, so you know, I'm willing to take that one on the chin. I'm just selling in a category that's not strong over there. I saw someone post in a Facebook group that I'm in that they are selling about the same amount of stuff on Mercari that they are on Poshmark, which leads me to believe they're a clothing seller. So they claim to be doing reasonably well over there. But I would be curious how others are doing as well. It's a topic that comes up here almost every week. Mercari, there's so much over there. There's so many listings. They're running multiple promotions right now. I currently have it's probably now expired, but they sent out a 10% discount coupon, and I've got a $10 off credit sitting in my account. So they are really spending the money trying to get people to make purchases. And as you note, it just doesn't seem to be working out for a lot of us. Then Decor says, there you go. Mercari's actually picked up a good bit for us this month. I'm probably ahead of last month on Mercari, but it's still not fantastic. Prepuccio Sanchez said, I made a sale on Mercari last week, but typically slow. Yeah, one, 2, 3 a week. If I do 4 sales on Mercari in a week, that's a good week for me. How many Mercari sales have y'all had in the last 14 days? Asks Bethany. Like I said, I've probably done 4 or 5, so nothing great, and they're all fairly low value as well, like sub $20 stuff, which is, to be fair, my bread and butter. So it's not that depressing, but it's not been huge. Mel says to Den Decor, my month sales are down still, even after a good weekend and consistent listing. Den Decor says we're at 10 sales on about 2,000-ish listings on Mercari for April. That sounds about right. I've had none and usually make at least 2 a week, says Bailey Banks. Yeah. And again, just like with eBay and with me, Monday, 26 orders, yesterday, 6. And nothing really different. I did listings on Saturday morning. I did listings on Monday. I was doing listings yesterday. So, I've got a consistent workflow where I'm consistently generating activity on my eBay page, and one day it's huge and the next day there's virtually nothing. It's very, very strange. Black Cat Flip says overall sales kind of slow, but not as bad as February. That is true. I know a lot of sellers really struggled in February. Sue Aaron talks about sell-through rate. It depends on the category you're in. For instance, I'm in media, so I generally am not looking at sell-through rate because a lot of media, it can be long tail. So if I've got an old book that maybe only sells 1 copy a year, but it brings 20, 25, 30, 40, $100, I'm willing to sit on that book for that amount of time. But in other categories, sell-through rate and getting a quick flip is absolutely the key to being successful. So it can depend on kind of the things that you're selling. Question, do I keep We Love Murderbot or sell? That's a good question. I've done that a few times. I've been at a stale and I've seen, I think I talked about this. I found a coffee mug. I'm into like railroad memorabilia, and I found a really nice like B&O old railroad coffee mug for 25 cents. And I just grabbed it for myself because I'm like, that'll be a nice collection, a nice addition to my collection. And I made the mistake when I got home of looking it up, and this particular mug was worth $25 plus shipping. So I listed that bad boy and sold it. Mel says, I always focus on eBay stats, but Mercari about the same. Poshmark is slower. Media Picker sales have been pretty solid here lately. Yeah, I've noticed in your responses to the Instagram posts on the weekend, you've been consistently mid 30s to mid 40s in your transaction count, which has been pretty solid for you. Media Picker says, my YouTube channel died with few views lately. Also, just had a hacker attempt this morning on my CD collector channel. Yeah, that's rough. I YouTube is hard, man. I've talked about it before. I've been doing this now for 5 years, and granted, this style of content, very, very, very niche down, specifically only really for resellers. I'm not trying to, get a much broader audience. But I've been doing this for 5 years now and have 2,200 odd subscribers. So it is a really, really tough thing to do and to stay motivated to do and invest the time when you may go weeks without really getting any new subscribers, especially when you're new. Man, I thought I was never going to get to 100. There was a long time I had more videos up than I had subscribers. So Den Decor Depot says we're 5% down for April with double the inventory year over year, but we're up 30% on March to April with about 10% more inventory. So that would feel like maybe things are starting to move in the right direction. But yeah, still, it's again, I think I mentioned it last week. May have talked about it in the main podcast on Monday as well. With everything going on in the world, it's not just big businesses that are kind of sitting on their hands with planning to do things because there's so much uncertainty. As an individual buyer, I've I've got plenty of things in my Amazon wish list right now that I would like to buy. It's about to be outdoor cycling season. I'd like to get a new head unit for my bike. I'd like to get a power meter to be able to track outside the same things that I track inside. But I'm a little hesitant to spend that money right now because business is so up and down, and it's unfortunately becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If all of us stop spending, people stop selling, they have to stop spending, and it just starts to go round and round and round. So I'm not smart enough to be able to tell you where this ends, but this time is a little sketchy. Mike Metco Meetups asks, I might have asked that international buyer if they would like me to make a listing for the one page of interest. Yeah, I suppose I could have done that and sold it as a PDF, as a digital download. But again, I'm not sure I can make that worth my time. I got to go dig that book out of my inventory. I got to bring it back here and take a high quality photo. I got to convert it to a PDF and yada 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 for something that might only be worth a couple of bucks. I know people that do that. That was just maybe he caught me on a bad morning, but it was just not something I was willing to do. I get that from time to time. I've had one person that has reached out to me multiple times on the same book, asking if I would take a couple of pictures of different pages, and I'm like, just buy the book. It's like literally an $8 book. What are we talking about here? Media Picker says, I bought a CD on Mercari last night for the personal collection. My initial payment attempt was denied. Took 3 tries to finally to get it to go through, and you wonder why they get no sales. That's interesting. I've had a lot of times where I'll accept an offer from a buyer and their payment fails. So I know it's an ongoing issue. I don't know if it's people trying to use their funds in their Mercari account and it's not working because you don't, as a seller, you don't see any of that information. I don't know if they told you why the payment failed or if it just you got a notice that the payment failed. But yeah, that can be. Most people aren't going to try 3 or 4 times unless it's something they really, really want. Media Picker says overall down 4.6 in gross sales for the year. I'm up just a bit, probably about that same amount, around 5% in gross sales, but everything else is also higher. I've paid more in shipping because of the shipping rate increases. Even though those are paid by the buyer, it comes out in the end. Fees have been a little bit higher. I've spent a little bit more money on supplies. So net, I'm about even despite being up in sales. So that's one of the advantages of kind of knowing your numbers and spending some time. And like I talk about every day, I'm in the accounting updating stuff, and I can tell, week over week, month over month, where is the money coming from and where is it going? Which platform is being good? Which one's charging me more? Do I need to realign where I'm sending products and so on? So those are things that you can learn by digging into those numbers. I'm a bit of a stat geek. I like to go into that. If you follow me over on Facebook, my personal account, I'm the same way with my cycling. Callie Debs, welcome. Good to see you. Miss Lachey Resells says 8 sales this month on Mercari with 225 items listed. Recommerce Dave, eBay can't let you get too many sales, so it's a roller coaster ride. I did notice that as well. I talked about in the main Monday episode. I did a $400 sale of 43 legal books. Created one new listing for those, put it up, sold it, and for the next 9 hours, I did not sell a single thing. So I know there's no firm evidence, but there is a ton of anecdotal evidence that if you have an outlier day or an outlier sale, you eBay throttles you somehow, because it was so obvious to me. I was selling, generally I don't go more than a couple of hours without selling something. And I had that big $400 plus sale, and man, it was crickets for the next 9 hours. Not even any watchers. I mean, it was just like I had disappeared from eBay. Swamp Picker says, hello, good morning, welcome. Mel flips it to Media Picker, watching less YouTube because of nice weather. There is that. I'm trying to get outside a lot more as well. Swamp Picker says to Mike Metco meetups, see you at Nashville. Big Dre says did a little retail arbitrage last month and it paid off over the weekend. 40 cents per PA Sports stamp pack and sold 7 of them for $72. Where's my... That's what we like to hear. Kaylee Deb says my sales are up, but I had to increase my inventory to counter the high fees. Yeah, you've got to, as those fees go up, we talked about the postal increase coming. If you're doing free shipping, that's something that you need to be aware of. Your costs are going to increase when the shipping goes up in July. I think it's July 14th, if I remember correctly. So it's one of the reasons I switched to customer paid shipping. So that's just all automated, and I'm not having to pay for it. So Den Decor Debo says he's projecting a 25% gross increase and 15% net increase given my current listing and selling rate, but I'm at 40% more inventory. It's not horrible, but 100% on nothing, feeling safe. Yeah, I'm trying to list, as I always do, as much stuff as I can. It's funny, I'm gradually working my way through the garage, and I was just thinking about the person who contacted me yesterday at this warehouse, because I had been up there in December and bought a couple of 100 books, and she said, I'll be ready for you probably the end of January, early February to come get some more. And I hadn't heard from her. And as I was packing yesterday's orders, I thought I should reach out to her and see if she's ready. And lo and behold, 2 hours later, I got a text saying, hey, you want to come up and buy some books? Mel says, sales depends on what stat. I'm up in sales, but down on dollars. Also, last year was my first year, and some items I own, so it's totally different sourcing. This year will be my baseline. Cameron, welcome. I think the algorithm has a collection of drivers, so it might help to perform a few other activities to push past a big sale. Yeah, and like I said, I'd list 6 days a week, 100 to 150 items. I send out offers multiple times a day. I try to stay super active over there. Mike Metco Meetup says, looking forward to meeting many people this weekend. That is a meetup going on in Nashville. If you're not following Mike Metco Meetups over on Instagram, they do talk about all of the various meetups in person and via YouTube that are going on. A really great resource to find out if there is a meetup of some sort in your area or online that you would like to attend. So let me go back here and do my Etsy cross listing so we can get this finished so I don't have to do this after the show. We're going to do the same process. I'm going to start selecting. I don't know, man. If I even have anything going to Etsy. Yeah, I have one here. Two. So again, my criteria is it has to be something that qualifies to go to Etsy. So it's got to be vintage or antique. So prior to 2005, probably, I think, is their cutoff. And it's got to be, for me, my cutoff is $12.99 and higher. Anything below that, because I have so much long tail, I don't want to pay the 20-cent listing fee potentially every 4 months for however long until that item ultimately sells. So I have arbitrarily set a cutoff for myself of $12.99. So in this case, of these 15, only 2 are going to go over to Etsy. I will select that and deselect Mercari. And again, you just hit copy and it will open up new tabs. And then we'll take a look at that offer I got. This is a reference book. Etsy did change from the last time I did this type of episode, the way they populate their listings. So this screen, if you had been watching previously, this screen did not exist the last time we did this about a month ago. So you can select your category. It does show your top most used categories. So you can see here what mine are: reference books, history, literature and fiction, cookbooks, guides and how to. And normally religion is on this list also, but I did a bunch of cookbooks yesterday. So that one has replaced religion on this list. It also has over here on the right a summary of what you're listing. So as you're working through the listing, you can see what you're doing. Like, for instance, here, this was made by another company. It is a finished product, and this was made in the 1940s. Just hit continue. And again, it will go through and add in most of the relevant information. It's got the title, it's got the photos. Etsy did announce an update just yesterday that we'll be covering in next week's show with some new photo editing features and some updates in their app, which will be interesting to see. It fills out my description. It fills out my price, my quantity, and my SKU. Mercari does not have a SKU field, so that does not go there. It's one of the reasons that I do all of mine manually, because I use my eBay mobile app to pick items. So if someone buys an item on Mercari, I will go and end the listing immediately on eBay. Then when I go to my warehouse, I can look up my unsold ended listings and I've got the SKU there because Mercari does not have a place for it. I could add it into the description, but then I've got to look at that listing. I've got to jump back and forth between multiple sites to find my pick list. So this way I just have everything sold and unsold in eBay, and I can really quickly pick and get out of my warehouse. It's got the core details that we populated already. It's got the category. Go down here. It filled in my weight and my size on my shipping. So I just select my profile for shipping, which is going to be media mail. Go down here. I have a section for books and hit publish. It'll remind me that I'm going to pay 20 cents to do this and hit publish. And it will do its thing. I can get on then to this next one. This is also a reference book. This is a textbook made by another company. It is a finished product, and this is from the 1960s. And usually, to do this more quickly, I will just scroll down to the bottom because I don't have to put most of this information in. Publish, boom. And I'll go back and look here, make sure that that is all good. That one is done. And there it is. This one has been successfully updated. That one is now done as well. So we can go back in here. And the last step for me, because I promote all my listings or almost all, I should say, I'm going to select all, then I'm going to come down here to these 3 that I'm not promoting. This one is a $900 book. I have the only one currently anywhere near that price. So I'm not promoting that because I don't want to unnecessarily pay that. And these 2 cheap books I've got at auction, $7.99 a piece. I'm the only one that has either of those listed. So if anybody's looking for them, why pay a promoted listing fee on something I'm the only one that has? So I'm not promoting those. And I'll go up here to sell it faster, promote. I am doing a general campaign. I did, based on what someone said here, was that last week, that they do a 0.1%. So instead of 7, they do 7.1, and that allows me to, in theory, at least, get priority placement over anybody that's doing up to 7%. I liked that idea, so I implemented it. It's one of the reasons I do this show every week, so I can learn new stuff as well. Those will all promote, and then I'm good. Let's check out this offer here. I have this item listed at $14.99. I set my minimum acceptable offer at $12 on this. I have an offer of $12.50. I am going to accept that. And that is now sold. And what I would normally do, if I wasn't here live with you, I would get on my phone and I would delete that from Mercari and from Etsy. I will do that when I'm done here. So that pretty much puts a wrap on that. Let's get back up here once again, and we'll get into the chat. Looks like there's been a lot here. If I can find, let me blow this up. All right, here we go. Lindy Moo, welcome. I'm purposely concentrating more items for men, such as military magazines and books, and it's working out very well. Yes, anything military and history does really, really well for me. You may remember, if you were here last winter, I did a big buy of science fiction books, and the person is also a seller, and they had acquired a huge estate of books that they didn't want to deal with. They literally had probably 800 or 900 military books that he had initially said he would sell to me at the same deal as the science fiction books, and then decided at the last minute to go ahead and try listing those himself. So I ended up not getting those, but man, I was I was excited about that lot because I expected that it was going to be a good one. Den Decor Depot, Mel Flips it, says to Den, 40% inventory increase in what time period? Den Decor asks how my Etsy has been. We somehow lost our star seller rating and 100% hurt us last month. My Etsy has been consistent. It's 6, 8, 10 a week. Nothing fantastic, but again, the margins typically are better. The average selling price is higher because of the way I list over there. So Etsy is 15% probably of my business, month to month. I had 1 month where I lost my star seller rating as well, and I didn't find, in my case, that it had impacted my sales at all. It was still in that kind of that same range. That program, because Etsy has so much less traffic, it it's very easy to lose your star seller rating. You get one, like, one-star review, and it can ruin you for a month. I think I talked about some time back, I had a person who left me a one-star review on Etsy for someone else's item. So I had shipped him an actual hardcover book, and he gave me a one-star review saying that he had ordered a digital download that he never received. I reached out to both he and to Etsy to try to get it corrected. He didn't respond until like 6 months later, which at that point, I'd already recovered from it. Etsy refused to update it, even though it was clearly about a different item. And that one-star review for that particular month caused me to not be a star seller the following month. But again, I didn't find that it really impacted my sales. But I know I've got a friend of mine. She makes handcrafted jewelry, earrings, and that kind of stuff. And she lost her star seller rating, and it crushed her business until she was able to recover from that. And that also can become, one of those dog chasing its tail kind of things, because it gets really hard to dig your way out of once you've lost it. If you lose transaction volume, now it's harder to get out of because you need more transactions to squash that one bad one. So it can really impact you for a long time. Then Decor says to Mel, 40% year to date. We're at 5,600 listings on eBay now, and a bigger footprint cross-listed, as well as 13,000 trading cards in a second eBay store that started at 0 this year. That's awesome. How's the trading card business going for you? And what of the various eBay tools are you using, and which ones do you find effective? I'm always curious. That's a category I generally don't sell in, but there's tons of money to be made there. It's frankly, a category I probably should sell in because I see trading cards all the time, huge, lots of them, even on Facebook Marketplace, that would probably, if I was willing to spend the time and effort, would be a profitable venture. Then the course says I took 25 hours to answer a cancel response on Etsy, and it dropped the response rate since I barely get messages on there, and we lost the rating and subsequently sales. Yeah, that the response rate on those is tough. Rebel Junk, good morning. How was the rest of your evening last night with Kat? I was there for about the first 45 minutes and then I had to go, but love her show. Mel Flips It says I tried the 8% promo versus 7% and my sales went down, so I went back to 7. I talked about, gosh, what was it? A year ago probably now. I did the same thing. I went from 7 to 8, which is what eBay is constantly recommending that I do, that I up it to 8. And I didn't drop, but I didn't notice any increase. So I went back this little itty bitty tweak going to 7.1. Last weekend, notwithstanding, I did a ton of sales over the weekend, had arguably my busiest week ever, but a lot of that was from one repeat customer. So I'm probably flat with that at 7.1. Aaron says, "Oh, it was good. Always love a reseller chat." Indeed. So let's take a look. We've been talking about List Perfectly, and someone mentioned that it can be quite pricey, and it can. So let's take a look at what their pricing is and kind of what you get for your money. So they've got 4 tiers. Simple, which is just the basic. They have the business plan, which is what I'm on. They have a pro plan, which is on my radar. It's probably something I could take advantage of, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. And then they have Pro Plus, which has tons of features and tools, and it varies depending on a variety of factors, anywhere from $99 to $249. So again, at 29, 49, those are not bad values. I usually have made my $49 back within the first couple of days of the month. So that has been a terrific option for me. You can see from what we just did there how quickly and easily I'm able to do my cross listing to multiple platforms. So I like it quite a bit. The $69 plan, again, it's on my radar. Let's take a look at those different ones. Hopefully you can read all that on your screen. With the basic, when you do a transfer, it has to be individual. You can't do bulk transfers, which is why I opted for business. You get to transfer the image, the title, the description, and the price. That's pretty much it. If you upgrade to that business plan, you also get brand, color, size, quantity, any keywords and tags, MSRP if it applies, barcode if it applies, and SKU. Most of those things were either super important to me or not important at all. But for me, the bulk cross listing was the one that I needed to have. We'll get into that a little further down here. If you go to the Pro plan, you also will transfer condition, shipping weight, and shipping dimensions. You may have noticed that even though I'm only on the business plan, those things actually did transfer to Etsy. So let's keep that on the DL. Shipping weight and size do transfer even on the business plan. Image management, you can host some images, but it's a pretty small amount on their site. You can use their listing assistant. If you're on the basic plan, it's only $25 a month. On my plan, it would be $50. I'm doing 50 sometimes in a single day, doing 400 to 500 in a month. So unless I went all the way up to the Pro Plus plan, their listing assistant, which by all accounts is really, really good. If you want to use an AI listing tool, almost everybody that I've spoken with that has used this compares it to eBay and says it is a grand slam in terms of the difference in the quality of the listings that it creates. You get a photo background remover. On the basic plan, you only get 25. If you go to the business plan, it's 50. You go to Pro, you get 1,500. That's a number that probably makes sense. From there, they're pretty similar. You can cross-list to all marketplaces. You can cross-list to multiple stores or accounts on the same marketplace. You can use their catalog for inventory management and so on. There are some things that you can't do on kind of the basic plan. Again, the bulk cross listing is the big one for me. That's not available until you go to the $49 plan. You cannot cross list to Instagram, Shopify, or Listing Party. So if you have an Instagram shop or a Shopify store, you've got to at least go to the business plan. You can't do custom titles for different marketplaces. I don't do that anyway. You can't bulk import unlimited listings to list perfectly. You can't do bulk edits, updates. You don't get a sales and analytics dashboard if you're using them in that way. And you don't get custom marketplaces. So the basic program is for kind of a really small seller who wants to manually cross post a handful of items a day over the course of a month. If you're doing any kind of significant numbers, you probably would want to go at least with the business plan. And again, if you're inclined to try the service, there is an affiliate link down below. You'll get 30% off your first month. Give it a try and see what you think. Again, the channel gets a little bit back for referring you over there. So if it's something you want to do, please be sure to use that link. I would appreciate it. But you can see, and I'll link to this. I'll go back after the show and link to this pricing page in the show notes so that you can go and look at this yourself. But you can see there's a lot of red X's on there on the basic and even on the business plan. They've got a really thorough FAQ section. They are constantly adding new features and updates. So it is not cheap. $50 a month is $50 a month. But if you're doing a significant number of listings and you're wanting to transfer those over, whether it be to Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, or all of them, it can pay for itself pretty quickly. In my case, like I said, it is generally a couple of days and I've made my money back. So I am a big believer. I know there are multiple other services out there who do similar things at different price points. Everybody has their own preferences. I know we had Colorado Reworn on. Gosh, I don't know, probably coming up on a year ago. She uses Vendoo and is very, very happy with it. Obviously, some people here in the chat are using was it Nifty, the old auto posher, and having really good success with that. So there are, as is usually the case in reselling, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. This is the one that I've chosen to use, and we just kind of walk through how I do it. Again, those are not the only way to do it. It's just how one guy sitting here in his basement chooses to do it. So you get an example at least of what some of these tools can do. Let's hop back here into the chat. Big Dre says it sounds like you already found your niche store in trading cards. It's time to sell. Absolutely. Trading cards, a vintage junk wax, $1.89 free shipping. I have a scanner and I use the eBay photo list tool. There you go. It's about 8 of 10 on recognizing cards. That's pretty good. Can list up to 200 cards an hour, selling about 25 a week. There you go. Yeah, 200 an hour is a pretty good clip. I would take that. Do you have any like PSA graded cards, or are you mostly doing kind of the lower end, taking advantage of the like eBay standard envelope and all that kind of stuff? Then Decor says 13,000 cards is 36,000 in inventory that I maybe have $500 into, all in, including the scanner. Yeah, that is a win. And some of those may be long tail, but at those kind of margins, you can afford to wait. It generally, like I talk about with my bulk book buys, I'm going to go to this warehouse the first week of May. I'm going to get, I don't know, 500, 800 books. I'll probably pay 50 cents or less a piece for them. So, and even if I have $400 in it, I'm only going to have to sell maybe 20 books, maybe 25 out of that whole lot to get my money back. And then from there, everything is gravy. So that to me is one of the beauties of media just in general. You can get big quantities at low entry prices. So your cost of goods sold is next to nothing. Your return on investment and your margins are through the roof. And then it's just a matter of putting in the work to get everything up and running. Mel Flips It says, to be fair, Nifty with a similar plan is the same price. Yeah, I would expect that most of these services are, as is the case with most things, the competition drives everybody towards a very similar pricing scheme. Some of them may have like different introductory programs or whatever, but I would expect for similar services, you would probably pay similar prices. Then Decor Depot says unlimited Vindu is about the same price as a business plan, but it's all up front. Does have photo room too. Made that money back 5 times over since last September. Yeah, it is. Again, if you're doing 5 or 6 listings a week, just as a hobby, it'd be very, very difficult, I think, to justify the expense. But if this is your full-time living and you're selling on more than a couple of platforms and you've got hundreds or thousands of listings a week that you're working with, I think whether it's List Perfectly, Vendu, Nifty, some other service, I think at least looking into finding some way to automate that or at least help you automate that is probably a win. Kelly Deb says, I've used a basic list perfectly since their inception. There you go. I was a little late to the party. When I initially started, I was solely focused on eBay. And after about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I discovered Mercari. I did some manual cross listing over there because Mercari is what it is in terms of its sales volume. The juice just wasn't worth the squeeze to spend the time to do all that manually. But when I started looking then at Etsy as well, I started thinking about, okay, how can I make this process a little more seamless and a little quicker? And that's when I discovered cross-listing tools, ended up with List Perfectly, and it's been my go-to ever since. I would not turn it off. Mel says, I just prefer Nifty because it delists when something sells and I don't want to change either. Yeah, and I'm the same even within List Perfectly. I could very easily upgrade and take advantage of those features, but I've got a workflow that I like that has been built into a habit now. I know what I'm doing. I know that I need to manually go in and unlist things. And this whole process that has been through trial and error over the time that I've been doing it. And I just really don't want to make that change without a really, really good reason. Once you've landed on a service like this, if it's working for you, why change it just for the sake of change? And unless it's like significantly less money or provides significantly more service, it's very difficult to justify. Then Decor says right now, lower end ESE just made top rated plus on there. Congratulations. So expanding to PSA cards and some higher value cards. That's a good plan. Yeah, just start with kind of the basics. And then as the account gets more reputation and more like authority, then you can move into the higher grades of stuff. Cameron D says, if your selling channel is clothing, you need a sharing process, which is super annoying. Yeah, I've had a couple people ask me about selling books on Poshmark because apparently it is a thing you can do. It's not where I would think to go for books, but I've talked to a couple people that do okay over there. But the constant need to be promoting and sharing would be a huge, huge turnoff for me. It should be clear because I'm not real good at even promoting the stuff I'm currently doing. I'm not doing a great job promoting the YouTube channel or that kind of stuff. So, and that would obviously have a huge impact on me. So there you go. You need to know your own strengths and weaknesses. Then Decor Depot says, developed a system where I print a packing slip more with a coupon code that acts as reinforcement in a number 10 envelope. Laser printer prints directly on the envelope, and it's under 2 cents in materials. And again, I will just point out that is exactly the kind of things that all of us should be doing in our businesses, finding ways to develop a process that is efficient, repeatable, and as inexpensive as possible to give you the biggest bang for the buck. And here you've got Den Decor that has come up with a system. He's got a printer, he's got his envelopes, he knows how much they cost, and bada boom, bada bing, he's selling tons of stuff, and he's got 2 cents in materials, getting things on their way. Awesome. Kaylee Deb says, across list to 4 platforms at the same time on List Perfectly. I just don't use their storage. I don't either. Everything is eBay is kind of my hub. By all accounts, their accounting portion and their inventory control portion works very, very well. It's just I was so deep in already with the number of listings that I've got before I really even started thinking about it, that again, to go back to what we just talked about, making that change without a super valid reason, just doesn't make sense. If I was missing delisting a bunch of stuff and having a lot of disappointed customers because I forgot to unlist something that sold on another platform, maybe it would be more of a consideration for me as well. But in my case, it hasn't been an issue, so I've not converted over. Black Cat Flip says Vendu just started Posh and Depop sharing in beta. There you go. That's a good tip. How, if there are any Depop sellers on here, how are things going for you over at Depop? And I ask specifically because there was an announcement yesterday, as you are probably aware, especially if you've been watching this show for a while. Depop is owned by Etsy, who also, up until yesterday, owned Reverb, which was a pre-owned music equipment marketplace. And they have entered into an agreement to sell off Reverb to two separate firms who will take control of it probably sometime in the next few months. So I'm just really curious, since Etsy took over Posh, whatever that's been, or Depop rather, a year, 2 years ago, whenever it was, how is that platform going? Are you noticing any changes? I know they had said when they took it over that they were going to allow it to operate fairly independently. But I'm curious if you found that to be the case and if you're having success over there. Let us know in the chat. Bethany Walker says at 7% as well on the promoted listings. I see people that are at 2. We've got someone in here that usually does a no cap dynamic. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think a lot of it depends on the categories that you're in, how high you need to promote in order for them to have a chance to be the one that gets surfaced to the top. For me, 7-ish seems to be the sweet spot for what I sell, which is 90% media. So that's kind of where I've stuck. But I know in other categories, it's got to be higher than that because other people are using higher rates. We talked about sometime in the last couple of weeks, there was an article about how eBay supposedly recommends their promoted listing rate. I find that their rate that they generally recommend is significantly higher than what I'm always doing. And it's always a pretty broad range. Like for my bulk, for my campaign, they recommend that I up everything to 8. But if I look at any individual listing on a day, it might be recommending 10 to 12 or 12 to 15. And that to me is just, it's a bridge too far. I'm sketchy, to be fair. I've talked about it before. Having to promote, pay extra to get eBay to do the thing that they are supposed to be doing anyway, which is to surface the highest quality listings and the best match items to the most buyers. But it's the sandbox that we live in now, so I do it. But I'm not willing to go 12, 15%. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you would do or consider. Black Cat Flip says you can set it up on a schedule to share automatically. There you go. Do people do, I know that a lot of people who, especially on Posh, have virtual assistants. Is that something you have your virtual assistants do if you happen to have one? Mel says, I sell books on Poshmark, but only because I was already selling other things on there, and Nifty does all the maintenance. There you go. Pamela Reeves, welcome. I've sold some books on Posh, but have to really watch the weight limits. Yes. I looked into it one time, selling some books over on Depop, and it was the same thing with the weights and the way they handle shipping. There were a lot of books that just would not have made sense over there because I don't believe they offered, at the time I looked, they didn't offer media rate. I don't know if that's changed. A lot of sites have finally gotten on board with that, but man, some of those were, some of these old books can be quite stout. So a book that might make sense on a site like Poshmark, you just can't make it make sense because the shipping is just out of this world. Den Decor Depot says, great chat again. Thank you. Hate promoting my socials. The juice isn't worth the squeeze yet for me. Have a great day. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. It's always good to see you. Yeah, the like Instagram, we're off on a tangent here, but this is something that I was actually talking about with somebody the other day. So I've only got, I don't know, 800 and some followers over on Instagram, but on any given post that I put up, it's lucky to get 15 or 16 views. And that to me is remarkable that you could have that number of followers And I mean, what are people with millions of followers? Are they getting thousands of views of their posts? It just doesn't seem, it almost seems not worth doing. You can let me know in the chat what your opinion of that is. I realize, like, even from my own use, I'll get on Instagram and I'll scroll through maybe 20 or 30 posts, and then I'm on off to something else. So I'm not seeing all of your posts most likely either. But that number just blows me away. I mean, it's in many cases it's less than 1% of my actual people are seeing the things that I post. Just bizarre. Pamela Reeves asks Kaylee Debs, do you sell individual cookbooks or sets? I think I missed that. There was a comment about cookbooks doing really well. I may not have mentioned it. I saw it, but I don't think I read it. But yeah, cookbooks do well. I think I talked about, it might have been last week. I do fantastically well with cookbooks anyway. Just listed a whole bunch this week. If you are a cookbook nut, I'm going to do a massive cookbook live sale on Whatnot. I believe it's 2 weeks from tomorrow. I've got 2 huge Rubbermaid totes full of big cookbooks that I'm going to do lots, kind of match up styles like vegetarian cooking and so on. And I've got dozens of the smaller, like the little Betty Crocker booklets that I'm going to build lots of. So if cookbooks and that kind of thing are your jam, 2 weeks from tomorrow on my Whatnot store. Then Decor Depot says Depop is slightly better than Bonanza for me, about 1 sale a week. The non-binding offers are awful. Yes, that has been a common complaint that I've heard from Depop. I'm curious, we talked about in the last main show that Bonanza was raising their fees and also instituting some listing fees for people who had more than 50 items. And I did get a couple of comments on that people who had not already left Bonanza for one reason or another were probably going to leave now. If you're a seller over there and you're still there, what are your sales like? Because I was in the same boat as Den Decor Depot. I would sell maybe 2 things a month on Bonanza. And they started making some changes that just were not convenient for me in terms of how to ship things and whatever. And for the number of sales that I was getting, I just walked away. Now with these additional changes, anecdotally, I'm getting some feedback that even more people are leaving, which I'm sure was not what they intended. If you're here in the chat and you sell on Bonanza, let me know what you think of what's going on over there. Big Dre says Depop is an enigma to me. 0 sales last year, 1 sale this year. Yeah, it's, again, I don't know what even the primary market is. I assume it skews much younger than eBay does, but yeah, it's rough over there. I'm hearing that from a lot of folks. Kaylee Debs says to Pamela, sell individual cookbooks. And again, I've talked about, I just listed a whole bunch of, again, like the church cookbooks and the community, the school cookbooks, and a couple from small businesses that had like the best recipes of their employees. And those books, you would not necessarily believe that there would be a market for them. But as I talked about previously, you get a relative, a granddaughter, a niece, or whatever, that knows that their person had a recipe in that book and they don't have a copy of it. You're going to sell it. And they're 10, 12, 15, $20 all day with a cost of goods sold generally under $1, a lot of times 10 cents, 25 cents. I mean, they're, again, not individually huge sales, but fantastic margin, great return on investment, easy to store, easy to pack, easy to ship, great quick little flips, bread and butter type items. I love those old cookbooks. I usually, if I'm at a sale and they've got like boxes of them, I take them all. I didn't read the message. Cameron D, my bot shares, never be able to do it myself. Yeah. You would have to have some sort of automation, like we just talked about with cross-listing. Recommerce Dave, trending rate on books down here is 10%, and media has crept from 8 to 11. I still haven't pulled the table to see what media mail rates are going to here in the US in July, but I would not be surprised if the £1 rate creeps up close to $5 here. Then Decor says, I'm in a lot of saturated categories, dynamic 12% promoted on those, dynamic 8% elsewhere. Yeah, if again, depends on your category. And if there's a ton of competition with the same or similar items, you've got to go where they're going in order to get your things seen. I talked about it previously with the promoted listing priority. There are categories where if you want to be seen, you've got to use those programs. I'm not in one of those categories. So I've never even attempted to use it. I've had on this show a couple of people in the past who have and have not had great success with it. I'm sure there are categories where it's fantastic and doing quite well. But for a lot of secondhand sellers, that priority campaign in particular, where you're paying for clicks, can get real expensive with not much result because you have a listing that, let's say you're doing a promoted priority campaign, and that listing gets shown off-site somewhere, and somebody sees this really cool photo of whatever, your vintage dress or whatever it is, and they just want to see more pictures of it. They click in, they look at it, maybe they like it, and then they leave, and you paid for that click. And if that happens 100 or 1,000 times over the course of a listing, that adds up to be a lot of money for people who are just literally wanting to see your item. If you've got a high turnover, high demand, highly competitive item, then it probably makes sense, in my opinion, as always. Big Dre says the Depop algorithm promotes listings with the Depop fold, which is folding shapes onto your shirts and the photos. I don't get it. Yeah, I'm not over there. I've never shopped over there, so I don't know all the ins and outs. But anything that becomes like very prescriptive, obviously you want good lighting. You want to show any flaws. There are some basic things that you should do with your photos, but when they start demanding or favoring ways that things are folded, that to me is probably a bridge too far. I mean, you can't do it with a book, so I guess I wouldn't have to worry about it quite so much. But Pamela Reeves says, I sell quite well on Poshmark, but don't have a PA bot and don't share that often. I do pay attention to the offers and the likes. There you go. Miss Lachey, eBay suggested rates are a no for me. Once I got a suggested rate of 18% on a fast moving item. Right. Yeah. And those rates over time have just crept up and up and up. The recommended rate, they say, is not, but I can't help but think that it's based on the rate you're currently at now, because when I was at 5%, it was recommending 7. When I went to 7, it was recommending 8. So it's always, they always want, but they're like little kids. They always want just a little bit. Can I get one more snack? Can I get 1 more percent out of you? I've drawn the line and I've said no. Den Decor Depot says, I shut my Bonanza off last week. The extra fees I can put into other things. Yeah. If you're not doing a ton of business over there and you got a bunch of listings, I know it's only $20 cap max in listing fees, but you got to sell a lot of stuff to overcome $20 in listing fees on, whatever number of listings that ends up being. And my experience over there was 1 or 2 a month, maybe a $15 or an $18 item. I was not making $20 in net profit on Bonanza to afford to pay those listing fees, let alone the fees attached to selling the thing to have all of my listings over there. Just the math wasn't mathing for me. There you go, Big Dre. 0 sales last year on Bonanza, 0 sales this year. At least they're consistent. Oh, goodness. Recommerce Dave says, with Whatnot, have you considered doing some more desirable books at a higher, i.e. eBay start price, to see if people pre-bid buy from your shop? It's on my radar. If I got maybe some books that were duplicates of books that I already have listed over on eBay. The reason I say that is I'm hesitant when eBay is 80% of my business. And Whatnot, granted, because of the way I'm doing it, it's less anyway, but it's probably 2% of my business. I'm not convinced yet, our conversations with Max Common Ground Finds notwithstanding, that I want to tie up a $40 or $50 book on on Whatnot for a live show or whatever, rather than to put it on eBay where most of my buyers are. That's a mental hurdle that I've not yet overcome. The cookbook thing is going to be interesting because I am going to do something different there rather than trying to sell one book at a time. And if you caught my children's show yesterday, there were some lots there that were 2 books. My sale's coming up. I've got a ancient history sale. Those are all going to be lots where there'll be 2 or 3 books in a collection. So to try to entice to provide maybe a little bit better value, even though they're not necessarily individually 30, 40, $50 books. But if you can get 3 what should be $5 or $8 books for $5 or $8 for the 3 of them, maybe that will entice people to make more purchases and to buy more items. But I'm super hesitant personally to not put my best inventory where most of my customers are. And I'm fully cognizant that that's probably holding me back a little bit on Whatnot. Um, I don't, I've got a lot of inventory, but I don't have anywhere near the amount of books that Max does, where I feel like I'm in a position where I can maybe take that quick nickel versus the slow dime. I need to find that middle ground, maybe not completely max out everything I do, but I need to get close to what an item is worth. And I'm not sure that making that move with super good books yet is something I'm willing to do. We are a little over an hour, which is where I like to keep these. I am actually heading out for I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to do 35 or 40-mile bike ride this afternoon. It's supposed to be about 80 degrees and sunny here. So if anybody has anything else they would like to talk about real quick, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wrap this thing up. Again, I will be here next week. I think it's the following week. Yeah. So I'll be here on the 30th, but not here on the 6th or the 7th, whatever that second Wednesday is, as I will be out at an estate seller's warehouse, probably loading up some books. I hope everybody's businesses are doing well. I know it's a little rough out there, kind of mixed things, some people up, some people down. All I can tell you is keep the faith, keep working the process. Buy the right stuff, be shrewd when you're buying. We talk about it all the time. The money's made on the buy, not on the sell. If we have to negotiate a little harder on the front end when we're out at estate sales, that's what we got to do. They have all been raising prices. I was at a sale last week. I picked up some really nice books, but it was a seller that typically was $1 for paperback and $2 for hardcover. This sale, they were $3 for paperbacks and $4 for hardcovers, which definitely changed my selection criteria. And they were not, it was the first day of the sale, so they weren't willing to negotiate. So I bought 20 or 30 books where normally at that sale, I probably would have picked up 50 or 60. But they weren't willing to negotiate, and I wasn't willing to overpay just to get some inventory. So we've got to be sharp about how we're buying in order to kind of get through this time. No live coverage of the book pickup. No. I may do some shorts or something as I go through the bins and just kind of show some of the stuff that I've loaded up there. To be fair, I don't have any idea what I'm walking into, which wall it is she's talking about, what kind of books are over there. I did pretty well up there during the winter, so I'm excited to get up there and see what she's got. But no live streaming for me. Cameron D says, have a great ride. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I'm a Zwift rider. If you're familiar with Zwift, I've been doing that most of the off season. I am definitely ready to get outside. Miss Lachey with the thumbs up. If you're still here and you haven't already and you got something out of this, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. I would very much appreciate it. With that, my friends, I think we're going to put a wrap on this. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time. As always, thank you for participating in the chat, sharing your knowledge with me and with each other. I always appreciate it. Until next time, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.